for seniors, and seniors know they can count on this Liberal government.
The honourable member for Carleton.
Asked about the $120,000 year-over-year increase in housing prices, the top economist for the Real Estate Association said, "This is the biggest gain of all time. And certainly in dollars, it is far larger than anything that has ever happened. But why? Can't blame supply chains. Land doesn't have supply chains. Can't blame COVID. Almost all the houses in Canada were built before COVID happened. In fact, the things that drive house prices, wages, immigration, and GDP, are all down. So if the underlying means with which to buy housing are all down, why is it that real estate prices are up by record amounts?"
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we've been clear. Housing affordability and home ownership are priorities for this government. We will help municipalities build more and better homes faster with programs like the Housing Accelerator Fund. We'll also help families buy their first home sooner with a more flexible first-time home buyers incentive and a new rent-to-own program, and by reducing housing closing costs. Yesterday's update includes our plan to implement a national tax on non-resident, non-Canadian-owned residential real estate in Canada, and we will keep being there to have Canadians' backs as they deal with the rising cost of housing.
The member for Carleton.
The question is, why did housing prices go up so much with wages, GDP, and immigration down, and with all of the housing supply being right here in Canada, not linked to a so-called global supply chain? What is causing this eye-popping record increase in the cost of owning a house? Well, it just so happens that prices started rising right when this government began printing $400 billion of new cash into the financial system, $200 billion of which went into increased mortgage lending, with the investor class getting the preponderance of that new money. Why did this Prime Minister give so much to the have-yachts and take from the have-nots?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Canadian deserves a safe and affordable place to call home. That's why in 2017, we moved forward with the National Housing Strategy. Since 2015, our government has supported the creation of nearly 100,000 new units, repaired over 300,000 more across all housing programs, and helped more families get the housing they need. Supporting families through programs like the Rapid Housing Initiative, the First-Time Homebuyers Incentive, and the Canada Housing Benefit are continuing to help Canadians, but those are all programs that the Conservative Party voted against.
Member for Carleton.
Because they all failed. The proof is in the pudding. Housing prices now are higher than ever before. $720,000 for the average house, not a fancy mansion like the Prime Minister inherited or the one taxpayers pay to house him in. An average house costs $1 million in Canada's biggest city. And this is broadening the gap between rich and poor. He can't blame the rest of the world for the problem that is happening here at home. So why exactly does Canada have the world's second biggest housing bubble?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
While Conservatives continue to focus personal attacks on me, we're going to stay focused on Canadians. We will continue to invest in housing. We will continue to be there for solutions for Canadians. Indeed, we'll take no lessons from Conservatives when it comes to housing, because the Harper government played no leadership role on housing, and their plan in the last election on housing was to give tax breaks to wealthy landlords selling their buildings. That made no sense.
The honourable member for Carleton.
No, what makes sense to him is to give cheap debt to investors to buy their buildings, because investors have doubled the amount they've been able to borrow on the cheap because of this Prime Minister's money printing. I'm sorry that the Prime Minister took my question personally, but the 30-year-olds who will be celebrating Christmas in their parents' home are taking that personally as well. They can't afford a house for themselves because this Prime Minister's policies have inflated those costs out of existence. So, simple question. Does Canada have a housing bubble, or is it just inflation?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, young people in Canada, indeed all Canadians, have faced real challenges over these past 19 months with the COVID pandemic, with extra pressures on so many different things. And that's why, as a government, we chose to be there for them. We chose to invest in young Canadians, invest in seniors, invest in workers, support small businesses, things that the Conservative Party continues to say we shouldn't have done, that we invested too much, that we spent too much in supporting Canadians through this pandemic. Well, the fact is, not only was it right to support Canadians through this health crisis, it was the right thing to do to make sure our economy comes back as strong. Way to help Canadians, and the best way to get our economy back to normal is to end this virus, this pandemic once and for all. That, Mr. Speaker, is what we on this side of the House are focused on.
The member for Portage-Lisgar.
Well, what this government, what this Prime Minister continually does is raise taxes on Canadians. January 1st, he's going to be raising taxes again on struggling small businesses. But the Liberals and their elite friends are doing just fine with this just inflation. But working Canadians are struggling to put food on the table and even dream of buying their own home. The Prime Minister has been in office for 6 years, and the Canadian dream has never been further out of reach than it is right now. So when is the Prime Minister going to get serious about the finances and the economics of this country, pay attention to monetary policy, and think about struggling working Canadians?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, every step of the way over the past 6 years, we've been there for small and medium-sized businesses. We lowered the small business tax rate. We've been there to support small businesses through this historic pandemic, to support them, and they have responded positively. We've seen our economy bouncing back faster than many economies around the world because we were there for our small businesses. But what the Conservatives are talking about when they talk about payroll taxes is the fact that we are securing Canadians' retirements. We have made changes to CPP to make sure that Canadians can retire better. The Conservatives simply aren't there for our seniors.
I remember having a little puppy who would look a certain direction. If I talked to him or look at him, I'd be looking at them, and they would just concentrate and figure I couldn't see them or hear them. I just want to remind